This is Ross Richie, and you're listening to the C-List Villains podcast.
Welcome again to another episode of the C-List Villains podcast, your cultivators of the comic culture. I'm your host, AJ, and today I am joined with E-Man, Luke, and we have a special guest on the show. We have Ross Richie. Ross Richie is the founder and CEO of Boom Studios, which has won Diamond Comic Distributors Publisher of the Year 9 times and published 5 New York Times bestsellers. He has won Eisner, Harvey, and GLAAD awards. He's published the international superstar Keanu Reeves' BRZRKR, which has become the best-selling comic book of the past 26 years in comic shops, and has produced the Denzel Washington and Mark Wahlberg movie Two Guns, as well as the horror film The Empty Man, based on Cullen Bunn and Vanessa Ardell Ray's comic book. He is executive producing the Disney TV Plus TV show Just Beyond, which is currently in production and based on the best-selling Boom graphic novel series from Goosebumps creator R.L. Stine. Let's give a warm round of applause for Mr. Ross Richie.
Hey.
Yeah, Ross, thanks for being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming on. I know that you've got a very, very exciting weekend ahead. Something came out this weekend that I'm sure has made your company very happy.
Something, right? Something happened this
what was
week.
that?
What was that? What is this thing, Ross, that all of a sudden has put Boom on the map?
Well, Boom's been on the map, but this took it to like
An astronomical level.
600,000 level.
That's it.
Well, it is absolutely, I'm completely gobsmacked. And I think the word gobsmacked was created for situations like this. I mean, we're sort of utterly blown away, and I would share with you and your audience that we might even be a little bit terrified of the response, which is we're only thankful for. And I think we feel a tremendous debt to the fans and our retail partners for ordering these books. It's been incredible to watch and very exciting to get these reports from folks about how the book's selling and how people are receiving it, and see fans reacting to it online. And it's something we've almost put 4 years into. So we've had this under wraps for a long time.
Wow.
Keanu and Matt Kent worked on that story for a long time. We wanted Keanu, is very creative, but he had never created a comic book before, and we wanted him to have a lot of time to be able to be very comfortable with the process and not feel rushed. And I saw him on Wednesday, and he said, can I have a little bit more time on number 5? So he's well ahead, which is good, but at the same time, now he's starting to tease me like a freelancer, wanting to extend his deadlines. So
and with something like that, you kind of have to say it's Keanu, right?
Where does an 800-pound gorilla sleep? Wherever it wants.
Exactly.
Right. So but look, he has been everything that you want Keanu Reeves to be. He is even better. Gracious and kind, and delightful, brilliant, insightful, extremely well-read, very literary in his approach, deferential, excited to work with Matt Kent. And one of the fun things about this, if you're a process junkie or you're interested in how comics are made, or if you like how comics are written, Keanu came in to pitch, and I was in that first meeting with Stephen Christie and Adam Yolen, who work in our media division, our film division. And he got up physically. I was sitting on a couch, and he got up in front of me, and he sort of pushed his fist forward, and he said, "I just want to punch through dudes. Like, I just want to punch through a guy's head, and I want to punch through a guy's chest and rip his spine out through the hole." And then he spun the story, and he spent about 4 hours explaining everything that you read in that first issue. It's all in there.
And I can hear, just the way you're describing it, I can hear Keanu Reeves' voice. I just want to punch a dude right through the face.
Yes,
The slow
you nailed it.
And I just want to see his like brains explode. I'm like, oh my God, this sounds just like Keanu.
Yeah. That's exactly, that you gave me a little tingle. It's like going back. and the thing is it is like, what's interesting is the way that he created Berserker. A lot of it, you could see the physicality of the actor in him, where it was performing what it was a way to access the character concept. And the way that I've kind of been talking about it for the folks that haven't read it is, John Wick is a very pretty, elegant, right? The hotel is called the Continental.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful work of architecture, and the protocol of saying yes sir and following the rules is extremely important, and sort of the way that you treat the other assassins in the franchise is really important. And so it's a very structured, the violence is ballet. It's very much almost Jackie Chan, the way that Jackie Chan kind of thinks of himself as a dancer.
Yes.
It's like that. And I think Berserker is the reaction, it's all the things that he can't do in John Wick, which is bloody, dark, violent. I mean, it's not like John Wick's not violent or dark, but it's like gritty. It's very much, he's a Frank Miller guy. He's thrilled with Ron Garney. Ron's doing a lot of, you can see the influences in Ron's work. Ron is a legend in and of himself, but there's this great thick line work and this real sense of volume. And this, I when we were hanging out on Wednesday, I said, this thing's a runaway freight train. The first issue's a runaway freight train. And Keanu started to giggle, and he was like, yeah, it is, and I think what Matt did was, I think another writer would have tried to kind of like take all of this energy that Keanu had and all this sort of like Keanu was, it's a little overwhelming to have this incredible movie star and be like, I want to punch people, tear their spines out. You'd be like, whoa, yeah, wait a minute, right? Like, let's take it back to step one, and let's start somewhere. Like, who is he and what is he doing? But I think the thing that's brilliant about Kent is that Kent said, yeah, what else? And Keanu's very kind. And what goes with that is when you're a kind person, you're very careful. And you sit there and you go, is this okay? And is that okay? And I don't know how this works. And he's very methodical. And so Keanu was very specific about, okay, well, I don't know how this works. Can you explain this to me? I mean, one of the things I've been doing this week is explaining distribution, comic book distribution to him. And he wants to know, how does comic book distribution work? And I mean, when I say thorough, he wants to know every single aspect of the process. And so he, it's like Kent was able to create this like little world where he's saying to Keanu, more, yeah, what's next? Okay, cool, you want to punch through guys. How many guys? 1,000? And that... And I
literally punched through 1,000 on that first issue.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah. And it was good because I think there were other writers that I think justifiably and understandably would have said, okay, well, let's rein it back. Let's start on square one. And Kent was like, no, let's start on mile 1,000 and then let's crank it up. Like, how do we get to Spinal Tap 11 all the time? And I think that's how you get that first issue, which is just nuts, And I think it's so much fun. I think they did such a great job of conveying to the audience. I think what the spirit of this thing has always been, which is just a complete thrill ride. Let's take this thing to the moon. It is not for the faint of heart.
Now, I know that you just had stated that he's working on issue 5, and it's a 12-issue storyline. When the thought process in going for the book to be a mini series, do you know the ending, or are there chances that it could change as as the months go by and he's working on the book some more?
So we're trying to get as much information from you about this book as possible, Ross, okay?
That sounds like an interview to me. There isn't an interview that I've done where people haven't tried to pull things out of me. Yeah, I know how it ends. And it's been there from the beginning. It's been there from that first meeting. And so, that being said, I think what's important as a publisher is that you need to be flexible. Mm-hmm. And as creative people start to work on things are fluid and they change, and they find creative people find new solutions and they encounter problems that you couldn't see at the beginning. And so you've got to be supportive of the creative process. And I also think it's my job when it's appropriate to say, hey, wait a minute, I think we might be losing what we have all showed up here for.
Right.
So, right. Don't forget about that. So, but it's always I really try to let the editors do their thing, and I try to provide 2 or 3 things at the top level that are important things to hit, and then get out of the way.
Right.
How much of an influence did you have in the creative process of the book from beginning to wherever Keanu is at right now?
Well, a big part of my role is to kind of I think, architect the space. And what I mean by that is, Keanu came in and you didn't know what he was going to be pitching, but in that first 4 hours that we spent together, we said, let's do, Keanu didn't know, he's like, here's all this story that I have, and how does that work? I understand screenplays. I don't know how many issues this is, how many issues should we do? And, I always kind of start in a 4 or 5 issue kind of framework, and listening to it in that first 4 hours, I was like, look, this is 6 issues worth of story content. And then we did some more story workshopping with Keanu until we really felt like we had a good framework. And, Stephen Christie, who's our head of our film, and then we brought in editor-in-chief Matt Gagnon, and sort of the 3 of us were working with Keanu on it. And then we sort of found Matt Kent and approached Matt and said, hey, this is, we think you'd be interested in this, and we're going to fly you out. We're going to sit you down with Keanu, and let's see if y'all get along. And the first thing that Matt did in that meeting is after he heard what Keanu had to say, is he said, we need 12 issues. And it's funny because, Matt is very, I love and adore Matt, and I think he's a genius. And he's also a little pranksterish. And it was like, I'm going to put the publisher on the spot in front of the giant movie star. Yeah. Right? And we're going to see if the publisher blinks. Right. And so he was like, no, we need 12.
That's good. That is good.
And I was like, okay, you want 12? We can do 12. And then the next thing Matt Kent said was, and we need a double-sized first issue.
Oh,
so I think that is, a lot of my role as a publisher is to try to create a framework, and as the project's coming together, it was, my understanding, it was Matt Gagnon's idea to bring in Matt Kent. Maybe it was Eric Harburn's, but I think it was Matt Gagnon's, as I remember it. And I think that pairing, as you're building a project, it's like, okay, well, who's Keanu working with? Keanu working with Mark Waid on that project, or Keanu working with Donnie Cates on that project? Those are 3 different versions between Kent and Cates and Waid, and they don't look the same.
Right.
One of the things you see today in that project that was pitched in the very first meeting was when Keanu got to the end, he said, and we'll get Raphael Grandpa to do the cover. So that, I think, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about Keanu's conversance with comics, and that was his way of saying, and I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I am a real fan.
Right.
And you just don't need, what else do you got after Masmo Delivery? It's a brilliant, transcendent work, and if you haven't read it from Raphael Grandpa, go read it. It's genius. And then of course Raphael just worked with Frank Miller on a Dark Knight Returns one shot, and so it's fun. I'm the guardrails on a certain level, And so I'm trying to kind of put everything within a commercial framework and process it. Of creators, a lot of times they want a wacky format, they want it to be magazine size, or they want it to be twice magazine size, or they want to make a poster out of it, or they want to make, tell the story backwards, or it should be a flip book, or and my job is to kind of pay attention to the market and make sure that it's sort of is something that would be commercially received,
right?
Or at least that's how I perceive my job to be.
Right. Speaking of covers, good friend of the show, John Boy Myers, his cover was actually the 1 in 1000.
It's a genius.
Yes. Could you briefly explain the decision process of doing a 1 in 1000 and choosing the cover
and having it signed? Like, that was the extra.
Yes.
Remember that?
That was the secret sauce.
We saw your Instagram post of delivering this to the man himself, and anybody who knows anything. We already knew that you were going to hand those directly to Keanu, so we need to hear this.
The minute that we announced that book, any social channels I had were crammed with people doing a not subtle job of thinking that they are hoodwinking me into getting Keanu's autograph. And so
I love it.
It was like,
I love it.
Hey, so
you know him.
Can you see Keanu? So it was, it was very clear to me, that this was something that it wasn't just exciting, that there was a torrential amount of excitement about, and the other element that I would put to it is, it isn't just sort of an average fan who doesn't really understand necessarily how things like that work, or how difficult it is to get that autograph. It was the most polished professional in the business wanted it too. And that was very informative to me. I was like, oh, wow, there's something about this that brings out everybody's inner child, right? That you suddenly are not, sort of in your adult mind thinking about, well, this is obviously very difficult to get. So that's when I started to think about, okay, how do we address the autographs? And then they just kept coming, the requests. And so I started to go, we kind of reached out to Keanu and said, is this something that you would be amenable to? Because there's a lot of celebrities that are not interested in that. And I don't blame them. They're very busy. They got a lot going on. And it's complicated and hard. It's harder and more complicated than you think. So then once he said, he's really given everything to this project. He's over-delivered 1,000 times. And he's put his heart and his soul into it. So he said, hey, I'm good for X number. And then I started to get worried because we had so much demand for his autograph. So I was like, how do you gate this in a way that you don't offer it, and then you're in a situation where you can only fill 20% of the orders?
He's not going to sign 600,000 copies for the next 2 months.
10% of that is 60,000 copies. Yeah, I still don't think he would do that.
Even that.
Exactly.
No. I can tell you, no, he will not.
Yeah.
So then you're like, okay, well, how do I get this threshold to a place where it's really hard to get? What is the hardest threshold that I can conceptualize so that I can protect him from getting overrun? And that's where I came up with the 1 in 1,000, where I was like, I guess there's a 1 in 1,500, but that just, you start to sound like a supervillain, right? And I mean, I kind of thought 1 in 1,000 was kind of supervillainy anyway. I guess I'm on the right podcast. And it's we immediately, it was like 10 seconds after we announced it, I was taking heat on Twitter from fans that were like, that's us, I can't ever, why, and I was just like, oh, well, like, look, here's the thing, man. I mean, I just can't fill this demand.
Yeah.
And so I'm just you just do the best you can. You're just a person, you're just trying to make choices and get through it. And so the orders for that came in twice what I thought they would.
Wow.
And I mean, when I talked about what I thought the number was, people on staff looked at me like I was insane. They were like, it's going to be half of that, Ross. It came in 4 times their number, twice mine. So it's a very rare book. I'm not gonna, for the people that are interested in how big the print runs are, it's going to be a very rare book. 1 in 1,000 is an expensive item. And so really on another level, you're talking about what's the share of wallet that people have for Keanu's autograph. And let me just say that it has come in a lot higher than I expected it. I wouldn't pay that for people's autograph, but I think that the market has articulated what it is. And so anyway, we did that. And then I called up Bryce Carlson, who's our vice president of editorial, and had the discussion with him. And he had John Boy's cover and loved it and knew instantly that this was the cover to do it with. When people eventually see what the autographs are, one of the things that John Boy did that's really cool is the way that it's colored. It's tapered down and it's darker at the bottom. And Keanu went through a whole process of trying to figure out what was the best color. He wanted to sign in the darkness at the bottom.
Uh-huh.
And what's the best color? And he and I had a conversation about, I was pushing gold and he was like, nope, it's silver. And he's right. It's staggering how great it looks. It's a good thing that I'm not an art director. So
it's a testament to you, Ross, because I think if this would have been put out in January of 2020, it would have been received differently. I think your company has positioned itself so brilliantly in this last year that there was a hunger for it, and that we received the Keanu SIG. And I was talking with the shop owner in mid-January, and he said, this was just released. Can you believe this at 2000? I said, if you're smart, you're going to order one. I said, just order it. Just don't even think it's Keanu. I mean, and you guys have really brought together something that there were no celebrity SIGs in 2020, right? There was nothing.
Right. Yeah.
That's very true.
I hadn't thought of it from that perspective. I appreciate the kindness. I was just trying to figure out how to deliver something that people were wanting, but try to walk the balance between that and what Keanu was capable of. I by the way, the punchline is I think we got right up to the edge.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, I mean, obviously Berserker, it for the lack of a better word, this book was a boom.
But
Thank you.
It is it's an amazing book. And what's even more amazing, and speaking of last year, you guys had this 2020 run. Just, I don't know if you even know this, but you guys were our publisher of the year for 2020. We had a C-List Villains Award show, and you guys won publisher of the year. And that's really saying a lot, especially with last year, how COVID affected a lot of retailers. Could you explain how you guys were able to maintain and even exceed expectations throughout all of last year?
Well, I think that, when we sent the team home a week before everybody else did because of what we saw coming. We saw my chief financial officer, who handles sort of the accounting, she has a background in biology, like she has a PhD. She's a doctor in biochemistry.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And when she's sitting there going, this is bad. This is really bad. Let me show you a bunch of really complicated scientific web pages that just are predicting how bad this is going to be. And we were like, ooh, okay. So we got together in the conference room, the senior leadership, and we're like, we need to send these people home. And so we went home, and then the shutdown hit. And on the diamond shutdown front, it was horrifying. It was definitely one of the most biggest gut checks that you could ever have professionally. It's just your job, but there's a lot of people that get up in the morning that depend upon us to be able to pay their bills.
Yeah.
And there's freelancers and there's staff, and we had no income coming in. And so one of the things that I'm the most proud of is we did not lay anyone off. And beyond not laying any staff off, we didn't slow the creators down, because I was really worried about, hey, if I'm drawing 7 secrets and I'm counting on this money coming in, and I have a wife and kids, and I don't know if Daniele has a wife and kids, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but it's like I'm a father and I have kids and I have a wife, and I worry about that. And so I wanted to keep all that going forward, and nobody knew how long the shutdown would be. And I was talking to Diamond Sunday before the Monday that they announced it. That Sunday afternoon, I'll never forget, I was on the phone with the head of Jeppy Family Enterprises. It's very difficult. And so you go through that, and I was talking to Philip Sablick, who's our president of marketing and publishing, and saying, when we come through this and when it reopens, how does a retailer know that anybody will show back up to the store? And maybe people trickle back. And certainly there's a lot of fear out there. And we need to make it such that these retailers are, they are facing tremendous uncertainty, and they're going to be careful, and they're going to be conservative. You're not going to order 100 copies. You're going to be scared that you're exposed. And you're not going to know where the market is for 4, 8, 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And what if the market's changing? So we've got to be infinitely flexible. And they are our partners. We need to make them feel safe to order these books. And so Philip and I said, we're going to make every book returnable. And prior to that, Boom was the first publisher to make, DC would make a book here and there, like 52, that book, 10, 15 years ago was returnable. And they would make some weekly books returnable and things. But we were the first people to make first issues returnable, pretty much across everything we did. And then we made our entire line returnable during COVID, so that retailers could know they can order the books and we'll take them back. Because my attitude was, we got to get copies on shelves, and we want the product there if fans come back. And if fans don't, retailers shouldn't be punished for supporting us. And fans came back, and nobody saw that coming. Retailers didn't, distributor definitely didn't, publishers did not.
Right.
And Marvel stopped publishing. And one of the reasons that Marvel did, I haven't talked to anybody at Marvel, this is just my conjecture, but retailers were telling publishers to throttle back. And I think Marvel did a good job listening to them. And Marvel completely throttled back. DC took 1 month's worth of product and spread it out over 2 months. And I go to the shop every Wednesday, and I try to do that to keep my consumer hat on. Be a fan, be a collector. I went to the shop and I was like, it's boring. Like, I want to go to my shop. I want to spend $50 because I want to support the shop. And I don't have anything to buy. Right? So we need to put things out for them to buy. And Punchline was building, and it was super clear, the shutdown pushed the debut of Punchline back. And when I looked online, I could see that just made it bigger. I was like, this is going to be even bigger when they finally do it. And we knew that we had 7 Secrets coming out, and we knew that we Only Find Them When They're Dead coming out. But what no one knew was that we had a James Tynion graphic novel in our pocket. We were going to put it out in November. And it was an original graphic novel that would not have been serialized as a comic book. And I thought, ding, 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 this is it. We need to put this thing out as a single. And people are excited about Punchline, and there's not a lot of stuff in the shops. And Philip said to me, well, that's cool and everything, but you can't physically do that. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, there's this process where you have to submit the paperwork to Diamond, and that's a month. And then they format it and they put it into the catalog, and they go print the catalog, and that's a month. And then the retailers have a month to collect orders. And then you've got to go to final order cutoff, FOC. So it's like a 120-day process. Like, there's no way that you can do that. And I said, well, what if we just don't do any of that? I was like, let's just go to final order cutoff. And he said, you're right. And he said that, well, that's insane. And I said, give me, I'll call Diamond, I'll talk them into it. And Diamond was great. They were all on board. I expected a lot of resistance, and they gave me none. And I called up Tynion, and Tynion loved it. Tynan thought it was completely insane, which it was, but I've named my company Boom. What do you expect? So,
Was
Tynan,
there at least
excellent book.
a picture for them to see what the book was about at all, or?
Oh yeah. Well,
Oh,
the
okay.
graphic novel, it was done, so
Oh,
we could show everybody everything.
Okay.
And
okay.
so what we did was we had 5 days between the announcement of the book and the final orders. And what I was banking on was I'm a retailer, and I've been doing final order cutoff every week, and I have no Marvel product, and I have very little DC, much throttled back from where it was. What the hell am I going to order? Oh, look at this thing. Because every single retailer was looking at their final order cutoff real close. So I knew that we had their attention. And what they did was they ordered that first issue better than they ordered Once and Future #1, better than they ordered Something is Killing the Children #1. And it became our best-selling original series. It was ordered better than Klaus. It was ordered better than Faithless. Yeah, it was mind-blowing. And then here comes Seven Secrets, and that book gets ordered better than Wind. And here comes We Only Find Them When They're Dead, and that book gets ordered better than Seven Secrets. And we just had this escalating ascendancy on a sales basis that was pretty incredible. So that I'm always thankful and grateful for. And that was nothing compared to where we ended up with BRZRKR. So it's been quite a roller coaster ride.
Which, by the way, Seven Secrets, AJ over there, he pretty much pushed it upon all of us to start reading it. And when I finally was able to get to it, I was like, oh my God, why wasn't I on here for #1? And then when I found, I was Ross. To be honest, I don't think when the shop that I went to at the time actually had it, or if they did, it was just very, very low amount that they got. But I was able still to get, the #1 and #2 first prints, which I was really lucky for. And then when we found, We Only Find Them When They're Dead, I mean, we were just getting more and more and more excited for Boom and what the and all of a sudden it's like, what's next? What's next, Ross? What's coming up next?
Just no pressure. No pressure.
Pressure at all.
So AJ's the one that got us all on.
Thank you, AJ.
On
No problem.
Seven Secrets. I want you to know that.
Seven
Good
Secrets has become my favorite book.
I adore that book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, look, here's the thing is, all of these series blow me away. And, I'm super proud. I mean, I'll tell you a secret, 7 secrets. I'll tell you one.
Okay.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? But one of the things that's really interesting, Something is Killing the Children is bananas.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just bananas, right? And it sort of has become a thing that is, I mean, that book deserves all of its success.
It was a bit of a slow burn, right?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, the thing is it from the beginning, it has been you need to look at it through this filter. Is the first print of that book was over 30,000 copies.
Oh, okay.
And we have been through 8 or 9 on the first issue, and we're close to 80,000.
Wow.
So it's sort of like, it was a huge hit in the beginning and was really special and something that everybody really reacted to. And it's just built and built and built, and then the trade sales are nuts. But the thing is Once and Future is gigantic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now Once and Future doesn't have cosplay for Erica Slaughter, so it's interesting for me to look online and see how these series are finding their support. And Once and Future is huge.
I love Once and Future
Series.
I think I gave Kieran Gillen my Writer of the Year last year.
Kieran Gillen's a genius, and like I am blown away by the lineup that we have. I sit here and I just like, I have a YouTube show, and I interviewed Kieran. I interviewed Tynan first. These guys are my friends. They're delightful people. I feel so lucky to be And I can sit around for 3 hours and talk to Kieran Gillen. I mean, it's just the best thing in the world. But, then you go talk to Al Ewing and you're blown away by Al Ewing. I mean, Al's a genius and is maybe as big a comic book nerd as me. God, watch out if the two of us start talking about back issues, you're never going to get a word in edgewise. And then it's like I get to go talk to Matt Kent, and Matt Kent and I are almost the same age, and almost all the things that influenced him influenced me. And it's like we just did I just put up an hour of the 3 hours we spent together, and I think we figured out we were at the same Chicago Comic Con in the early 90s, just didn't know each other.
Okay.
I saw that earlier today. While I was working, it was on in the background. But I was like, oh, that's pretty awesome that they might have been at the same con. And it's funny because you mentioned earlier how Matt Kent is a bit of a prankster, but listening to Matt and how his demeanor is, he's very soft-spoken, very chill. And then to hear that he was a prankster, that really, that's funny to me. I love that.
Well, the thing is it's like Matt, when you're bopping around and you're not doing a deep dive about his career, when you're bopping around, I mean, he's got a YouTube channel, you should go check it out. Like, he just did a Bad Idea promo, and by the way, Dinesh, you're welcome that I just mentioned Bad Idea, and when we're in the middle of talking about Boom Studios, you can send me a check later. But but he just did this Bad Idea promo where he had a pipe and turned around and had a globe, and I mean, it was like something out of a Pee Wee Herman sketch,
Yeah.
And so he just has a real sort of whimsical sense of humor, which I find really entertaining. So it's just, you just don't necessarily see it in that interview, because I'm the intense guy that's like, no, tell me about 8-Ball. Like, what is the creative influence of Chris Ware on your life? Like, I need to understand exactly which Fantagraphics comic you were reading at exactly that moment. So, what I always say on the YouTube thing is, it's like being able to bring the fans to the dinner that I'm having at the convention that you typically don't have access to.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, as fans, we want that. We want to be the fly on the wall when creators are hanging out, because we want to know what they're talking about.
Yeah. And I am you. The thing about Boom for me is I get the first ticket, right? Like, I get to sit in the front row. It's like I have front row tickets to who's your favorite performer? I got front row tickets to Jay-Z. I have front row tickets to Coldplay. All in perpetuity.
Exactly, yeah.
So in the VIP section, I don't have to wait in line. It's great. I get to read the comic first.
It's funny. I was just thinking about a couple of years ago, I was in San Diego Comic-Con, and we went to, we were at one of the hotels, and I see Joshua Williamson, Scott Snyder, and James Tynion all sitting together. And
Those guys are tight.
Yeah, I wanted to go take a picture with them, but I'm like, they're probably discussing future DC stuff, and they don't want to be bothered. And I was close to asking for a picture.
I bet you they were just discussing what to drink later on that evening. That's really what the conversation was.
Here's the key in those situations: ask, but be sensitive. Right. And so the thing is you can tell if it's the wrong moment after you ask.
Right.
And then you can't be the outraged fan that's like, what? You're too big to take a picture with me. If you're interrupting, two of them are giving the other guy marriage advice, which happens.
Right.
And then you're like, hey, can I? And they're like, yeah, bad time. And you're like, okay, sorry. They don't mind that. But it's like, on the flip side, if you go, hey, can I? I mean, I think all three of those guys would have taken a picture with you.
Right.
But I think it's, I think that's terrific. And I think that, I would just counsel fans that, fan entitlement, you can't feel you're entitled. People are people, right? And everybody's had a moment when, they want to go to the bathroom and be left alone. That's the story about Alan Moore. The reason he won't go to shows anymore is somebody asked him for his autograph while he was trying to pee.
Oh,
it's true.
Inappropriate guy. Thank you for ruining it for the rest of us.
No, thank you.
I wanted to ask you about the Something's Killing the Children. We're all reading it. We're all fans of it. The one thing I've always wanted to know is how was Tynion able to pitch you the title? Because it's a very I don't want to say divisive title, but it is.
It's very in your face. It's dark. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're talking to the guy that named his company Boom. Like, did you consider your source, AJ?
Well, I mean, even still, I'm like, wow, he signed off on it, because I did see that with Faithless, the polybag covers, you don't even want to look at those. So
yeah. Okay, well, you stole my story.
Oh,
yeah, I was going to respond with that. I love that. So for the people that don't know, I was walking around the Boom offices, and Bryce Carlson, the guy that put John Boy on the 1 in 1000, came up to me and he said, I want to do bagged blind variants with erotic covers. And when I say erotic, boss, I mean erotic, on Faithless. And I am very careful about content. And so Bryce has thrown a lot of fastballs past me that I did not swing at. And so I stopped and I went, oh yeah, that's a really great idea. We should do that. I'm going to worry about that tomorrow. But yes, okay. Then after we published Faithless, I went out to dinner with Brian Azzarello, and I said, Brian, I want to tell you that I was pitched doing these erotic covers. And I said, yes. And then with the first issue, Tula Lotte is the one that painted the first erotic cover, and they said, do you want to see the cover before we send this off? And I said, no. And the staff was like, what? And I was like, yeah, if I look at that, I will not want to publish it. It will make me uncomfortable that we're putting that out. I was like, we need to make sure that every retailer can see it, so that when they order, they know exactly what they're ordering. And if the retailer has all the information and are completely comfortable, then they can order that. But I don't want to trick a retailer or ship a retailer something that they're uncomfortable with. Some retailers are not going to order it because they don't like it. And I think they shouldn't. I want to support them. But it's beyond my zone. Like, I'm not comfortable with it. And so Azzarello kind of cocks his head as it's sinking in, and he's like, have you ever looked at any of the erotic covers? I was like, no, never. And he's like, you're telling me that you have published a series of comic books that you actively asked people to not show you? And I said, yes. And he said, that's the most insane thing that I have heard in decades from a comic book publisher. He's like, I can't believe you did that. And I was like, I just don't want to I would have canceled those SKUs if you'd have showed them to me. And so that, the thing, when Something is Killing the Children was pitched, James talks about this in the interview I had with him, of like, James thought it was 5 issues and it would be done in one. It would be like 5 one-shots, where basically something's going wrong in a town and Erica Slaughter would show up like High Plains Drifter, fix it and leave. And it was more of this experimental exploration.
Right.
And it grew and grew and grew in the telling, but he came in and said, this is Something is Killing the Children. And I knew from the title, I was more worried that we wouldn't fulfill on the title, because it's so attention grabbing.
Yeah.
And I trusted James wasn't going to put something in it based on that title that we would not want to publish. That's a way to create a framework. Is I trust Brian and I trust James, and that when we hire them, they have a long track record of pushing the envelope, but not doing material that would make you ashamed.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's a quality. They're high quality creators. They worry about the content. They want it to be exciting and sometimes shocking, but they don't want it to be hurt people. They're not doing things just to try to look cool.
Right.
Well, it's the mark of a true leader, Ross, to say it's out of my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? You're the creator. I'm going to trust you to create something quality and put it out, and I'll back it. I'm writing the check, but you do your thing, and I'm not gonna try and change anything. And with Faithless, that was a success. Children, huge success. I mean, obviously, that's probably the number one outside of the big two. That number one is selling for over $200.
Yeah,
just for one issue.
It's bananas. It's absolutely bananas. And let me clarify. Like, I think something that's unique about Boom is that we want to partner with our publishing partners. We want to partner with our creators. And so I have a team of editorial, and the editors work hand in hand with the creators. And so we are not sort of the folks that like, you go do your book and you show up and you drop it off. That's not us. It's like, hey, what are you thinking about the first issue? Let's talk about it. Well, what if we did this? Okay, you don't like that? Okay, let's not do that. What if we did this? Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, then let's do that. It's like we did it with BRZRKR. It's like we gave Keanu feedback. And, the way that I look at it is the creator is the author, and we are there to help. And I don't think there are some songs that are written that the first draft is brilliant. And then the majority of the songs are something that you toil on, and you work and work and work and work, and you make it better and make it better and make it better and make it better. And then you're finally at the point where you're like, this is good to go. And I think we create comics like that. We work on the marketing plans like that. We work on the publishing. Publishing, I think, is like bagging this comic, or how many variants are we going to do? And what's the strategy? Should this be the 1 in 25? It should be the 1 in 1,000. We think about that stuff, and it isn't just sort of like, hey, whatever, and it's not, we don't take the attitude of like, whatever you want to do, creator. It's like, we have a discussion. We're partners. We're like, we don't want to force anybody to do anything that they don't want to do, but we bring ideas to the table, and we'll argue for them. We'll be like, no, we think you should do this, and here's why. Now, if you don't want to, we're not going to make you. But it's a bit of a different approach. We're not Marvel and DC, where we own everything, and editorial is telling you what to do. And we're not a creator-owned publisher where it's like you just drop off your comic and we just put it out. We're something different. And so that's something I have a lot of pride in.
That attitude right there, Ross, is the reason why a lot of comic book shops love working with Boom. The comic book shop that I mentioned to you earlier told me that just the way your guys' process is with working with the shops with that attitude, they love it. They love working with you. So I have to thank you for keeping them happy, because they're bringing me comic books that I like, which make me happy, which in turn it's because of you, because then you're happy. Then we're all happy. That's what I like, I
love Well, you got to take care of, comic shops are our partners. And so, if we sell a $3.99 comic, the two major shareholders in how that gets paid out is the comic shop and Boom. Diamond takes a cut for distribution, but they're our partners, and at the end of the day, the audience is the fan. And so if you don't build something in a system that takes that into effect, why would a retailer pay attention to you? Why would they rack your product? Why would a fan care? You got to put out something that is going to catch your eye and make you excited. So we have to tell you a story, usually a classic story in a new way. And then, we've got to make it such that if you own a comic book shop, you look at that and you go, oh, that's cool. I want that. As opposed to, well, this is kind of solicited weird, and it's not clear to me what the story is. And that's an ugly cover. And, the last time I bought one of these, it was sort of the idea was half there, And so to me, it's like, if we all row in the same direction together, then we all win. So let's go do that.
Yeah,
totally.
Be a team.
I've just got 3 more questions for you, and then we'll move on to E-Man's
speed round.
Questions. Yeah, speed round. My 3 questions. How did you come up with Boom, the name itself? Have you ever wanted to, I know that you wrote a book once. Have you ever wanted to write another book? And I also saw that you were originally an art major. So have you ever wanted to do your own variant cover for one of your titles?
Okay, this is going to be pretty quick because none of these answers are going to be exciting.
Okay.
So I don't remember, I remember being 23 or 24 working at Malibu Comics and thinking, well, if I want to do something creative on the side, I'm going to, the company that I thought of name was Boom Productions.
Okay.
And ultimately, when I made Boom in 2005, I used Boom Studios because I'm an 80s kid. And back when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were published, you look at Mirage Studios, and there was just a lot of, Malibu Comics' original name was Malibu Graphics. It was it wasn't all comics. And so That's why it's studios, not something else. But why Boom? I couldn't tell you. Other than like, why hasn't anybody ever named their company Boom? I mean, I can't believe that I'm the first person to go for that. That's crazy.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So that maybe the smart answer to that would be why not, right? And then let's see. I wrote a comic book with Keith Giffen called Dominion for Image Comics back when Invincible was launching. And I did that because Keith talked me into it. And I told Keith I wasn't a writer. And Keith is a writer. And I made a deal with him that Keith could rewrite me when I sucked. And Keith would say, if I sucked. And I'd say, Keith, it's not if I'm going to suck, it's I'm going to suck. So rewrite me when I suck. And Keith rewrote me and made it better. And so I have no desire to go back to writing. I was completely unconvinced that I was a writer, and I unfortunately proved myself right. And as an artist, I was originally an art major, fine art, painting and drawing. And the way that I kind of thought about it was, you know, I was able to attain distinction in my high school for my artwork. So when I go home for high school reunions, people are like, oh, are you still painting? And they fondly remember my artwork. But when I got to the university level and I started to think about, like, you need to succeed nationally to be able to make a dent. And I just didn't see a future for myself with that. And so I didn't, that wasn't something that I felt I was going to pour my life's energy into. And so I don't have any desire to do variants. I think that it would be a gross abuse of power. And everyone around me would be kind of like biting their tongue in pain because they'd be afraid to tell me, you know, hey bro, hey boss, you're making the wrong move here. So, you know, to go back to what Luke was saying is like, you know, you got to know what you're good at and stick to what you're good at. I think that's a key life skill. And people in Boom are very used to me saying, stay in your lane. So I'm going to stay in my lane.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And
I'm good at 1 in 1,000 autographs.
Oh yes.
And
brilliant.
we can't wait for the next one, Ross. Okay, we can't wait for the next one.
Well,
Okay, Ross, there's three people in the United States, celebrities that are it's Keanu Reeves, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Dave Grohl. So you got one of the three. Now you got to work on the Rock.
Nice. I love it. Well, I just watched that Foo Fighters documentary, so you picked a good time to bring up Dave Grohl. So you ready for speed round, E-Man?
Speed round, ready to go. So, Ross, this is the rapid fire question portion of our interview. I'm going to ask 10 questions to, you know, let our audience get to know Ross Richie outside of Boom Studios. Are you ready for this, Ross?
Let's do it.
All right. Number 1, Texas barbecue or California cuisine?
Oh, come on. It's Texas barbecue.
How do you like your coffee?
Black.
Burning the midnight oil or early to bed, early to rise?
Early to bed, early to rise.
Favorite vacation destination?
Any place that's not home.
What's the best meal you've ever had?
Oh, good Lord. That's tricky. Oh, wow. I'll just say right now, Joe Beef in Montreal.
Spurs or Lakers?
Well, if I don't say Spurs, they'll take my Texan card away.
Favorite junk food to get the creative juices flowing?
Ice cream.
Favorite collectible in your collection?
Ice cream. Wait a minute. We're talking about something besides ice cream? I am an X-Men kid.
Should a bear fight Berserker? Yes.
Should a bear fight Berserker? No. That's a terrible idea.
And bonus question, what's your favorite upcoming Boom TV project?
Ooh, tricky. So that's where I say we're in production on Just Beyond from R.L. Stine, and that's going to be coming on Disney Plus. And so I have the mind-blowing distinction of being able to call R.L. Stine Bob, because that's how he prefers to be talked to.
Nice.
So I met him at New York Comic Con. I can't remember if it was 2017 or 2018, and inside the Boom booth. And It was absolutely surreal and utterly mind-blowing. The guy sold 400 million books. 400 million books.
That's a lot of books.
That's
He's a legend.
lot of books, man.
He's a legend.
He's an utter legend. And I'll tell you, he's the kindest guy on the planet. He's the sweetest dude. And I got to meet his wife, and he was extremely kind about the process at Boom. And it is, I remember the first time that I ever saw Goosebumps, and it's utterly mind-blowing that I'm producing a TV show from the creator of Goosebumps. So
growing up, almost every kid in school had a Goosebumps book, so that's amazing that you're able to work with him on a book that you've probably seen everywhere growing up, which is great.
Nuts, absolutely nuts. Only thoughts of gratitude and thankfulness.
Well, that's it for rapid fire questions right there, Ross. Thank you so much for playing.
Well, thanks for taking it easy on me. I was scared.
And we want to thank you again. I know you've got a busy schedule, so we want.
Yes, thank you, Ross.
All
Thank you
right,
for coming
one
on the
last
show.
question before you go. So
Yes.
here I get to turn the camera around on you.
Okay.
Why is it? First of all, why is it C-list? Why isn't it A-list? And then second of all, why is it villains? Why isn't it heroes? Why isn't it A-list heroes?
I can answer that.
All right, AJ, bring it.
Villains are always more fun it's always more fun to be a villain.
Ooh, AJ, I don't know if I want to go to dinner with you. I don't know, but I want to be a fly on the wall at dinner with you. Yeah.
And C-list, our motto is we're cultivators of the comic culture. So cultivators, comic, and culture.
Culture, gotcha. All right, then before I let you go, I'm going to do the speed round, and I want AJ and Elon and Luke to tell me who are their favorite villains. Just one. AJ, you're up first. See, look at what I did there.
Favorite villain, just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Darth Maul.
Darth Maul, nice. Well, I think I know what age you were when you saw Phantom Menace. All right, Luke, what you got?
Magneto. I'm a Magneto guy.
I am too.
Growing up.
I am too. I'm absolutely. That's the best superpower ever. So
Yeah, I love Magneto.
you win with that one. Iman?
Can I say Richter from We Only Find Them When They're Dead, because we need a Boom villain on
Nicely played, sir. Nicely played.
Very
I like
political.
it.
I like it.
I
Very
like
cool.
it. Political. I think he just poured his heart out, Luke.
I love it.
He's just telling it like it is. All right, now I will release you, fine gentlemen, this triumvirate. Whoa, AJ, those are going for a lot of money.
I know. This I've been holding on for so long. This was an amazing read, by the way.
Thank you.
I don't know if I read correctly, but there's a possible film adaptation, which would be awesome.
That I predict is going to get some very exciting news very soon.
Okay.
Oh, a little
Very
bit of news.
cool.
A little bit of news out
Got
there
it.
for
You got
our
it.
listeners there.
Before you go, I had one more last question. Hexed, will this come back?
There are not plans right now.
Okay.
I would love to do that, but there are not plans right
This is my introduction to Dan Mora, and
now. Yeah, he's
an
a
amazing
genius.
book.
Ross, again, thank you so much. You have a wonderful weekend now.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate
guys. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the C-List Villains Podcast, your cultivators of the comic culture. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and Spotify. All you got to do is search for C-List Villains. If you want to send us an email, you can contact us at clistvillains@gmail.com. Make sure you follow Luke Weeks on Facebook and Instagram, and join his Facebook group, Rare Keys and First Appearance Comics, also known as RKFA Comics. I'm your host AJ, and you can find me on Instagram, AJ the Comic Collector. Thank you, and see you next episode.